من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي وتقبله مني، وسلام على جميع الأنبياء والمرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. So this is our second week on Surah Ibrahim alayhi salam, and as we saw last week, it started with Alif Lam Ra, a book we have sent to you in order that you might bring forth people from darkness into the light by their sustainers' permission, on the way, on the path of the Aziz, the Almighty, the one to whom all praise is due, the Hamid. And before getting further to the second ayah, I want to pause here and reflect on the word kitab. After Alif Lam Ra, it says kitabun, a book. It doesn't say this is a book, hada kitabun it would be, or it is a book, huwa kitabun. No, it just says kitabun, only a book. And I wondered why. Of course, whatever we come up with is only one of the many possibilities, but still it is a sign leading us to the path of God, inshallah. So our part is to ask for the guidance. And if we ask why kitabun, then remember this ayah comes after the last ayah of Surah Ar-Ra'd, which is 1343. And there we were told, and those who deny, they say you have not been sent, meaning you have not been sent by God. So the الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, those who deny the truth, they say to the Prophet, to the Messenger of God, you have not been sent by God. لَسْتَ مُرْسَلًا. And in answer to that, the ayah says, قُلْ كَفَى بِاللَّهِ شَهِيدًا بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَكُمْ. Say that God is a sufficient witness between me and you, and anyone who possesses knowledge of the book. مَنْ عِنْدَهُ عِلْمُ الْكِتَابِ. Anyone who knows, who has knowledge, who understands the message, the book, he is also witness between me and you. And how do we confirm that God is witness? I mean, it seems like counterintuitive, because how can God be witness between the messenger of God and the deniers? Because if we know God, because they are saying it's not, you have not been sent, it means as though they know God, and they're saying you are not sent by God. So he's saying if we know God, then we would recognize his speech, and we would be able to authenticate his message, and therefore his messenger. Yes? This means that when the disbelievers deny that the Prophet has been sent by God, they also deny that the message itself, the message that the messengers brings, is from God. Because, so if we can determine that the book, meaning the message, is from God, then it would be clear that the messenger is also sent by God, because he is the one who brought the book, the message, to us. And I think this is important to understand. So this means in order to confirm that the messenger is indeed sent by God, we need to check the message he brings, and we need to confirm its truth and its divine origin. Is it from God? Does it bear his seal? And in Surah Ar-Ra'd, where it ends with the disbelievers saying to the Prophet, you have not been sent by God, which is a big claim because it assumes that they are speaking as if they know God and therefore they can recognize who is from God and who is not from God. And it only means that that's why it says who is the witness? God and those who know the message. Because if you knew God, then you would know if it's from Him or not. If you knew the message, you would know if the message is from God or not. And therefore, if the messenger is sent or not. So in Surah Al-Ra'd, we saw that the ayat of the Quran, in Surah Al-Ra'd, lots of ayat were about teaching us how to look at beings, at events happening in the world as ayat. And we were taught how to witness the seal, so to speak, the seal of divine creativity, the seal of Rububiyyah on them. They bear the mark of divine creativity. In other words, like it's as though being and events declare through their way of being, the way they are being created, the way they exist in the world, that there is no maker except God. Therefore, that their maker is God. And we saw how, because everything is interconnected in space and in time, the maker of one thing, however tiny it is, can only the maker of everything. And because of this, because for one thing to exist, to be, the whole world has to be first, or they are together, let's say, it's not even a matter of before and after, they exist together. The maker of one and all is also the one who knows everything, who controls everything, who has power over everything, who hears and sees everything. And this way we also saw how beings, how created things and events proclaim and reflect the beautiful names of God, Al-Asma al-Husna. And all these clarifications and all the witnessings of beings and therefore of ayats around us we understand from, for instance, in this case, Surah Al-Ra'd. And then it becomes clear that those who deny that the messenger is sent by God, they do so because of their ignorance, because they don't understand the message and they don't know God, or because they don't want to know. In their arrogance, they don't want to surrender to their Rabb, they don't want to listen, and therefore they don't have the intention to understand the message, as we saw in Surah Al-Jathiyah, if you remember, Surah 45. So in answer to the last ayah of Surah Al-Ra'd, Surah 13, this surah, Surah Ibrahim, Surah 14, 13, 14, comes right after, starts with a book, Kitabun, which means there is no assumption that the audience knows the book. Not yet. And for the moment it's a book until we confirm that truly it is sent from God. And then in the first ayah of Surah Ibrahim, it carries on after Alif Lam Ra, Kitabun, and then it says, we have sent you directly. It is about the Prophet now. We have sent to you, to the Prophet ﷺ, we have sent, the book have been sent to him in order that you might bring forth people from darkness into the light. It means by means of this message. So note how the emphasis is on the messenger. That's what the deniers were rejecting, that the Prophet is a messenger, is sent by God. And here it starts with emphasizing that a book is sent to the messenger so that he brings with it, with that book, with that message, people from darkness into light. So the emphasis is on the messenger and his mission to bring people from darkness to light. From another perspective, we can also say that by saying kitabun, the focus also is shifted from the book, because when you say the book, we look for, it's almost like in a visual way, we look for where is the book. But when he says a book, the book is still not we can't see it yet, but we see the messenger, because in life we see the messenger before the message. We access the message through the messengers. Without the messenger we cannot understand the message also, which is very, very, very important. That's why nubuwa is one of the aims of the Quran, maqasid al-Quran. And that's why nubuwa doesn't exist really in other religions. Like when you speak to other people, they say, like they think they understand prophet, he brought something, but they don't understand that it is a pillar, how it is a pillar of iman, why believing in the messenger is the pillar of iman. So when we hear kitabun, a book, our attention is not primarily on the book, but the focus is shifted. We are made to focus on the messenger bringing the book. And what is he doing with this book? Bringing people out of darkness and into the light. Because, why is this so? Because this way we understand that we need to receive the book from the messenger. They are inseparable. We cannot separate the message from its messenger. That's also the importance of the sunnah, which we should maybe one day have a class on, reflecting on the importance of the sunnah, of the sunnah, meaning not only the sunnah in fiqh, in amal, in acting, but the sunnah as the, not something is fard and something is sunnah. I'm talking about the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, which means the fard is also part of the sunnah. Believing in God is part of the sunnah. All how the Prophet ﷺ lived the message of the Quran. So the messenger is sent to us, he explains the message to us, and he demonstrates to us how to live with the divine guidance. That's why believing in the messenger is so important as well, because without it we don't have access to the message. So a book is sent with the messenger in order for the messenger to bring forth people from darkness to light, meaning this book is a means of bringing people from darkness to light. So clearly those who do follow the messengers, and as a result they go out of darkness and into the light, those people, they can witness that this is light, that this message is indeed from the divine, from God, and therefore they can witness that the messenger is indeed sent by God with a mission to bring people out of darkness and into the light. And they can witness because they tried it and it works. That's why they can witness. God is the witness, and those who know the message. And we know the message when we follow the messenger. They followed the messenger and they were brought out of darkness into the light. And that leads to the path of the Aziz Al-Hamid, the Almighty, the one to whom all praise is due, who is also described as God, to whom all that is in the heavens and all that is on earth belong. They are led to Sirat al-Aziz al-Hamid Allah alladhi lahu ma fi as-samawati wa ma fi al-ard. So in these two first ayat we're introduced to prophethood, to the message of Tawheed, the one God, Al-Aziz Al-Hamid, the one to whom the Almighty, the only Almighty, and the one to whom all praise is due. There is Tawheed even in the name mentioned here. and everything belongs to him. All that is in the heavens and all that is on earth, repeated, emphasized. And so we're introduced to the prophets and the message of Tawheed. And next, at the end of the second ayah, we're introduced to Akhirah and resurrection. And actually, many Muslim mufassirun, the commentators on the Quran, they defined the aims of the Quran, the so-called maqasid al-Quran, in various ways, but the majority agreed on these three common aims, these maqasid. God is one, meaning Tawheed, divine unity, is the first, which includes the world as it indicates its creator, Nubuwa, prophethood, and Hashr, or Ba'd al-Mawt, the resurrection of the dead. And the one main aim that includes all others is to know God. All these are in order to know God. As Imam Nursi says, the primary universal aim of the Quran is to teach the attributes of Rububiyyah, meaning to teach us who our Rabb is. And Imam Ghazali, rahimahullah, he says in his Ihya, all that the Quran contains may be included in one of the following three sections: guidance to knowledge of God's essence and the hallowing of Him, His tasbih of God, knowledge of His attributes and names, and knowledge of His practices, which are reflected in His acts and ibad, in His servants. This is in. So in the next ayah ends with, and woe unto the deniers from severe suffering. So there is an ishara, an indication to Akhirah. All the aims are already set up in the beginning of the surah. So when we read, okay, everything belongs to God, and woe unto the deniers from severe suffering, first it seems like suddenly there is this warning, like, why? What's going on? Why is this? First, warning means be careful. Something very important is going on here, meaning that the consequences of disbelief are very, very heavy, very hefty. It means, are you sure you can bear them here, and especially in Akhirah? Because in Akhirah it will be worse, as we are told in Surah Al-Ra'd, remember? لهم عذاب في الحياة الدنيا ولعذاب الآخرة أشق. For such there is suffering in the life of this world, but truly the suffering in the life to come will be harder, أشق, still even more difficult, and they will have none to shield them from God. And also, if we bear the context in mind, meaning that these are the first ayat of Surah Ibrahim, Surah 14, that comes right after Surah Al-Ra'd, that ended with this. Surah Al-Ra'd was all about how everything is an ayah, all about full of evidences, how everything is witnessing to God and His Rububiyyah and His divine names. And still there are these obstinate people who are obstinately denying, don't want to hear the message, and saying to the Prophet, we don't think you are sent by God. So after all that, all those details of how everything is clear in ayah to the Maker, and how everything bears witness to its Maker, when some people still obstinately deny it, not because there is no evidence, but because they are not truthful, because they don't want to believe, because they don't want to surrender to their Rabb, because they are stuck in their ego way. They want to live as they wish. They think they want to wish as they. And as long as they don't make the choice to live as abd, people lie to themselves. We've seen in Surah Al-Jathiyah, for instance, or in Surah Al-Layl, Surah Al-Alaq, as they imagine themselves to be self-sufficient. In Surah Al-Layl we saw how they say وَأَمَّا مَنْ بَخِلَ وَاسْتَغْنَى, that istaghna is to imagine, someone imagines themselves to be self-sufficient when we are totally dependent on God's creativity and His sustaining. The one who calls the ultimate, the one who the one who is niggardly and imagines himself to be self-sufficient, وَكَذَّبَ بِالْحُسْنَى, and he belies the ultimate good, the ultimate goodness. فَسَنُيَسِّرُهُ لِلْعُسْرَى, we will make easy unto him the path of hardship. Subhanallah. And in Surah Al-Alaq it says كَلَّا إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَيَطْغَى أَنْ رَآهُ اسْتَغْنَى. Truly man, human being, becomes grossly overweening when he believes himself to be self-sufficient. And in Surah Al-Jathiyah we saw that this was وَيْلٍ لِكُلِّ أَفَّاكٍ أَثِيمٍ. And affak is someone who is a habitual liar, who lies all the time so much that he believes it himself. Woe unto every sinful self-deceiver, every lying self-deceiver. And who is this person? When people are in this state, they lie to themselves, they deceive themselves, they are self-deluded. Who hear God's ayat when they are conveyed to him, and yet, as though he had not heard them, persist in his haughty disdain. You can see the arrogance. Hence announce unto him grievous suffering. And we saw how the suffering is contained into the denial itself. The one who hears God's ayat when they are conveyed to him, and yet persist arrogantly as though he has not heard them. Announce unto him grievous suffering. Again, this is Surah Al-Jathiyah, Surah 45, Ayah 7, 8 up to 9, I think. So we can confirm the truth of this ayat, of the Ayah 14:2, woe unto the disbelievers, there is for them great suffering, here and now in our daily life, when we obstinately refuse to surrender and follow the path of the messenger. We remain in darkness in that particular situation, and it only causes us to be miserable and to be in pain, which that pain, that misery itself, that darkness, is a sign to the severe suffering in Akhirah. It's like Allah is saying, you can't bear this, how can you carry on like this? Because in Akhirah it will be even worse, because in Akhirah it will be clear. Here we can still delude ourselves. In Akhirah there's no way to delude ourselves. Everything will be clear. How we are lying to ourselves, we will face it. And it's very ugly and very painful. And so here and now, if and when we reflect on what's holding us from surrendering, we will find out that it is not that we don't understand. It's not that we don't have enough evidence. Actually, I would say even without evidence, if I always did something in a particular way, in resisting, try a new way and surrender and see, maybe it will lead you to light, like without even the evidences. So the evidences are extra mercy, extra bonus. And in Surah Al-Ra'd we saw how, like, when we are coming from that ego perspective, when we imagine ourselves to be self-sufficient, there is an I who knows what's good for me, what's bad, what I want, what I don't want, instead of surrendering to what is and being grateful for everything that is being given to us, and it's literally everything. We imagine that we have, life is mine, ours, and now I am going to decide what to do with it, and I have conditions. I don't want to, even my gratitude is conditional. It has to Things have to be the way I want it, otherwise I won't be happy. And of course, who pays for the consequences of this delusion? Ourselves. So we don't have, when we come from that perspective, we don't have a true perspective of reality. We only harm ourselves through that delusion. And even when we know exactly what the problem is, instead of letting go, for instance, stop complaining and trust God, find something to be grateful for, find an excuse to be grateful. Sometimes we find ourselves making excuses for ourselves, and we name it. We say, we need time to let go, it's hard, you don't understand me. We alienate the people around us, like no one understands me, I'm really, we get engulfed into self-pity. And it doesn't mean that it's not hard. Yes, it may be hard, but focusing on the hardship doesn't make it less hard. On the contrary, it makes it worse. And knowing all this, there is a part of us that refuses to make peace with what is, that refuses to prostrate before its Rabb. And the more attention we give it, the stronger it becomes. And the solution, personally, the solution I find in my life is to live more intentionally. Meaning, ignore it, ignore that part. That part may be still there, but the more you ignore it, the more that voice will seem coming from far away. It weakens. Ignore it, and whatever it is, intend to surrender here and now, anyways, whatever, regardless. Ignore it and focus on being grateful anyways. You think you don't find it? Find something. Find an excuse to be grateful, regardless of what that part of us says. And it will eventually, bi'idhnillah, weaken and fade away. And when we do this, we will be following the path of the messenger, and which is the path of God. And we will be taken out of darkness into the light, into the path of the Aziz, the Almighty, the Beloved, the Hamid. All our praise be to God alone. And we will have the dignity of worshipping God alone. And that's the path of God, to whom everything belongs. God, the most compassionate, who has control over everything. So we find peace there, because we can trust and rely on Him. And so when we hear and woo onto the deniers from severe suffering, وَيْلٌ لِلْكَافِرِينَ مِنْ عَذَابٍ شَدِيدٍ, we feel awe and reverence. When we remember all this, it is a reminder. It's not a warning anymore. It's a reminder. It's a compassionate reminder. It's a merciful reminder. And we realize that something extremely momentous, extremely important is going on here. And we'd better leave everything and listen very carefully, because at stake is our eternal life. Our life here and now and forever. Because it's not like, if I miss the light now, it's okay, not a big deal. No, the alternative is suffering here and severe suffering forever in Akhirah. So next we wonder who these deniers are. Who unto the deniers from severe suffering? I wonder, because I want to know, because I want to avoid being one of them, because I don't want to end in severe suffering. And that's exactly what Ayah 3 answers. The deniers are described as those who choose the life of this world as the object of their love, preferring it to the life to come, and who turn others away from the path of God, and they seek to make it appear crooked. Such as these have indeed gone far astray. الذين يستحبون الحياة الدنيا على الآخرة ويصدون عن سبيل الله ويبغونها عوجا أولئك في ضلال بعيد. So the first characteristic of the deniers is their love for this world at the expense of the next, at the expense of the hereafter. Meaning they don't love this world, Bismillah, in the name of as a gift from their Rabb, as Mazra'atul Akhirah, as a nursery field for the hereafter. They don't, because they don't see anything as an ayah. Nothing reminds them of Akhirah or of their Rabb. They are in disconnected mode and focused on the world for itself, in itself. And so their love of beauty, their love of perfection, their love of goodness is directed to things themselves, because they don't see things as an ayah to the source of goodness, the source of perfection. And so they end up preferring it over the hereafter. This means that this is not a general preference. This is that here and now, whenever they make a choice, their choices are shaped by their worldly preferences. Their priority is their worldly pleasure, their worldly benefits, instead of the long-term hereafter. Even if they do not deny the hereafter is not part of their daily choices and decisions. So with this attitude, which is living from the ego, from the lower desires, even if they outwardly perform the ibadat, the rituals of worship, even if they do, because it's not easy to do it when you are in that level, the worshipful attitude is lacking, because it is acting without knowledge of God and Akhirah. As Imam al-Ghazali, rahimahullah, he says, knowledge without action is wastefulness. You know, but you don't act on it, it will be wasted. And actually that knowledge will never become certainty. And in the same way, action without knowledge is foolishness. So such people invest in their life. They make all their efforts, their love, their emotion, everything is invested into this impermanent world. So what is the result of such efforts? Zero. Because the world is impermanent. At the end there will be zero. Huge total loss. And the second characteristic of the denier is that they are not content with this. They seek to enroll others in their way of life, because their way of life, their deen, the way, because they are deluded. They believe that's the best way to live. They are self-deluded. And so they seek to also enroll others, and in doing so they obstruct the path of God, and then they stand in the way of people by seducing them into the path of the worldly, by embellishing corruption, embellishing low animalistic desires, and making it seem attractive, because they themselves are deluded. They think they are doing something good. As we are told in Surah Al-Baqarah, it says, when they are told, do not spread corruption on earth, they answer, we are improving things. But truly it is they who are spreading corruption, but they perceive it not. And when they are told, believe as other people believe, they answer, shall we believe as the weak-minded believe? And it says, oh, truly it is they who are the weak-minded, but they do not know it. لا يشعرون, they are not aware of it. And when they meet those who have believed, they assert, we believe as well. But when they find themselves alone with their Satans, meaning the representative of Shaitan in us is the evil impulse in everyone, and the more we listen to it, the stronger it becomes, until it starts controlling us. They say, and then we say, but I can't do anything else. I have no choice. We have a choice. I am the one who appointed it, as it says in the Quran. You are the one who appoints Shaitan as your guide. And so when they are alone with their evil impulses, they say, truly we are with you. We were only mocking. We are only mocking the believers. Subhanallah. And the third characteristic of the deniers, they seek to make the path of God appear crooked by distorting it. They don't just say you are not sent. They find things to make the path of light, the straight path, make it as, you know, it's a burden. You're missing all the joys of life, as if, and things like that, and they mislead themselves and the masses. And these people, we are told in the third ayah of Surah Ibrahim, they have indeed gone far astray. So there are three degrees in going far astray, and the first one, we have to be very careful, is to love this world and prefer it over the hereafter. Once we start going that path is a dangerous path. So we have to be very careful. The hereafter has to be alive for us here and now. A hereafter doesn't start after we die. That would be too late. It starts now. Because yesterday is not here, now it's gone. So we are leaving. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. We are in a state of returning to God, and therefore akhirah is always here and now. So the deniers, they have no excuse, because the messengers speak at the level of the people. They speak in a way to make the message clear and accessible to everyone. And that's what we told in ayah 4, where we told, and we have never sent forth a messenger except that then with a message in his own people's tongue, so that he might make the truth clear unto them. And here, so if anyone denies and goes astray, it's their own choice, and not because the messenger or the message are not clear and therefore not accessible. This implies first that the message is sent in the language of the people from among whom a prophet is raised. This is the explanation you will usually find in tafsir commentaries. But more importantly, it means that the messenger conveys the message in a merciful way, in a way that is accessible to his audience, not only the language, because the Quran is in Arabic, and most of the audience is not in Arabic speakers. They can learn the language, and it's very good to learn the language, makes things much easier. But that's not the only point. Even the Arabic speakers nowadays, they don't truly understand the language of the language, literally language. But the meaning, even when it's translated, if it's translated sensibly, properly, the meaning it conveys is merciful, it is accessible to the audience. And so that no one has an excuse that we could not understand, that's why. If we can't understand, it's not from the message, it's we have to go back, because we take it as, if I don't understand something, therefore it's not clear. Maybe the block is within me. Maybe there is something to do with my intention. And I find this way of going back to ourselves very, very useful, because the more you reflect, and we need to make that intention that I am listening to my Rabb. It means I'm making the intention to surrender when I find the truth. But if I say, no, I'll only accept if I like it. If I don't like it, I won't accept it. Well, then you are not seeking the truth, because the truth may not always be what you what I imagine in my imagination. If in my imagination I am a little God, the truth is that I am not. So I will never surrender to the truth. Astaghfirullah. So our attitude and our intention is very important. That's why we need to make niyyah and make isti'adha before we listen to the Quran. And when we listen to the Quran, it means that we stop. فَاسْتَمِعُوا لَهُ. It says, when you hear the Quran, when the Quran is being recited, listen. Be quiet and listen. Be quiet, it means leave aside all your assumptions and listen to it. And then you compare with a clean heart if it's true or not. But if I start with assumptions and impose it on what should be, then I cannot always understand what is or accept what is, because I have conditions how things should be instead of how they are actually. So here what is important is that the messenger speaking in their tongue means in his own people's tongue, meaning he speaks in an accessible way. That's why the Prophet Musa alayhi salam, he asked God, for instance, to release his tongue. He was clearly speaking the language of the people around him. However, he still asks, he says, رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Loosen a knot from my tongue so that they may understand my saying, my words. And we are told, and we have never sent a messenger except in his own people's tongue, so that he might make the truth clear unto them. لِيُبَيِّنَ لَهُمْ. So the ayah is self-explanatory. Why is he sent in his own, in their own tongue? So that the truth is clear, is made clear unto them. So this is what matters. It is clear and accessible and understandable. But then we are told in the same ayah, ayah 4, but God lets go astray him that wills, meaning him that wills to go astray, and guides him that wills. It means he guides him that wills to be guided. For he alone is almighty, truly wise. Again, Azizun Hakim this time. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِنْ رَسُولٍ إِلَّا بِلِسَانِ قَوْمِهِ لِيُبَيِّنَ لَهُمْ فَيُضِلُّ اللَّهُ مَنْ يَشَاءُ وَيَهْدِ مَنْ يَشَاءُ وَهُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ. And God is almighty, truly wise. So again, here it's emphasizing individual choice. Divine guidance is readily available to those who want it, those who will it, to choose it and ask for it and follow it. But if we insist on not opening our eyes, no amount of light will help us to see. And no wonder we cannot find reason to be grateful when we close our eyes, because we're blinded by our own narrow, egocentric perspective, self-deluded perspective. And we are told at the end, and regardless of what anyone chooses, regardless whether we follow the path of God or not, we follow the messenger or not, God is and remains Al-Aziz Al-Hakim. He alone is almighty, truly wise. And he is here, Hakim comes in because there is this hikmah, the wisdom of sending a messenger, and the messenger speaks in a way that makes the truth clear unto us. So he is wise. And this reality is explained in the case of Musa alayhi salam and his people in ayah 5. we are told, and thus indeed we have sent Moses with our ayat. Lead your people out of the darkness into the light. You see, the same thing is again repeated. And remind them of the days of God. Truly, in this there are, meaning in this reminder, there are ayat for all who are wholly patient and deeply grateful. وَلَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا مُوسَى بِآيَاتِنَا أَنْ أَخْرِجْ قَوْمَكَ مِنَ الظُّلُمَاتِ إِلَى النُّورِ وَذَكِّرْهُمْ بِأَيَّامِ اللَّهِ إِنَّا فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِكُلِّ صَبَّارٍ شَكُورٍ. The word here, ayyamullah, the days of God, actually doesn't mean just days of God. In Arabic, technically it means momentous historical events. So it refers to very big events in history, which are in themselves signs to that this life is impermanent, signs that, for instance, in the case of Musa alayhi salam, Pharaoh was so powerful, but he ended up dying. He died like everyone else. He claimed to be powerful over everything. He claimed to be the Rabb of his people, but he could not be his own Rabb. He could not even hold his own life. And also the civilization that they built, you know, it's so powerful. The buildings we have now, they won't in thousands of years, I don't think anything will be left. But they build things that are still standing right now, yet they had no power themselves. So all these momentous events are ayat that life is impermanent, that human beings have no power from themselves, that they are sustained, they are not self-sufficient, and that the only permanent realm is that of the hereafter, and the only source of power is, and life is, with the divine, with God. Here it says to Musa alayhi salam, أخرج قومك من الظلمات إلى النور. So it's interesting that the same expression, take your people out from the darkness into the light, is used as it was used in the first ayah in reference to Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam. The only difference is that in the first ayah, remember, it was Alif Lam Ra, Kitabun anzalnahu ilayka litukhrijan an-nasa min adh-dhulumati ila an-nur. So that you take people, humanity, humankind, from darkness into the light. So when the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is addressed, his message is universal. But when other messengers are addressed, it's qawmika. Here, and أخرج قومك. Sorry, قومك, since it's the object of the verb. Your people, which is also an interesting note. So he is sent to his own nation, Musa alayhi salam. And then it says, so أخرج قومك وذكرهم, and remind them of these momentous historical events, because there is in that reminder, there are signs, there are ayat to every one who is sabbarun shakur. Sabbarun shakur is the intensive forms of patient and grateful. So wholly patient, deeply grateful, constantly grateful, always grateful, in deep gratitude. So patience here is needed to remain in a state of gratitude. That's why it says patient, grateful. These are ayat, signs for... So patience is needed to remain in that state of gratitude, because since life isn't always always ups, there are downs as well, there are hardships as well. So in times of vicissitudes, in times of hardship, we need to be patient in order to remain in that state of gratitude, so that our gratitude remains unconditional. It's not when we don't see the blessing around us, we leave it. So in times of hardship, when we tend to be in a state of fear or anxiety or whatever, we need to restrain. And we'll learn, in the beginning it seems like restraining. Actually, it's not a restraining, but I'll have to, before we get to that state of patience and gratitude, it looks like we need to restrain our fear and anxiety, because often we indulge in them. When we live unintentionally in ghafla, we indulge in anxiety and fear. And the more we indulge in anxiety, for instance, or complaining and self-pity, the more they grow, and the more they become our main focus, and the more they swallow us. And what is more important is if we indulge freely in complaining, in anxiety, it is a sign that we forgot that everything is an ayah. It means we forgot that whatever is happening that is causing us anxiety is happening bi'idhnillah. It is created, and therefore it bears a message from our compassionate Rabb. It reflects the beautiful names of God. And when we remember that everything happens with divine will, and therefore nothing is in vain and without purpose or purposes, because there are many purposes in everything, and they don't look, the purposes that look to us are very few. We forget that what's happening is not always happening because of us or for us only. Then we make istighfar, inshallah, and we remember that this world is impermanent. It's very important to remember that the world is impermanent, because it gives us a new perspective. It's the example that I like to remind myself. I have now my cell phone in my hand. If I put it in front of my eyes, I can't see anything. But actually, if I put it back on the table where it was before, it is a tiny object in a big room. So the room is tiny compared to the rest of the city. The city is tiny compared to the earth. But when I focus on it, and it's like focusing on something is like bringing it right in front of your eyes, and then we can only see it. But when we stand back and realize that this world is impermanent, this too shall pass, then everything, the perspective of everything changes, and our connection and relationship to the same event, to the same thing, is going to change, inshallah, if we're coming from the heart, if we're not just saying it but we don't believe it. If we believe it, it means we feel it, we confirm it in our heart. And so if we, after that, we decide to choose, because just because we realize that doesn't mean that I'm making the right choices. I need to intend to choose to refrain from complaining, to refrain from indulging in anxiety, for instance. And instead, I stop and listen to the ayat. Then we will realize, inshallah, that not only the situation that prompted us to be anxious is an ayah, but the anxiety itself is also an ayah. Because I did not create the anxiety. Actually, initially, when we are in a state of ghafla, if I could, I would destroy it so it never visits me again, because I don't like it. I don't like feeling that way. And since I can't destroy it, I try to ignore it. But paradoxically, that's why the poison is in the ghafla itself. The suffering is in the denial itself. Paradoxically, I feed the anxiety by focusing on how bad it is, how I don't like it, and objecting to what is going on right now. Subhanallah. That is the requital of ignoring God's ayat. So when I realize that the anxiety itself is an ayah, it is sent to me to teach me something. For instance, very simple example, before an exam, it makes me concentrate and prepare well. It's only when I indulge in it that it paralyzes me. But a little dose of anxiety is good. And if I listen to it, I understand, okay, I got it, I need to concentrate, to prepare well, I got it, I will do it, it will disappear the moment if I'm doing it intentionally, consciously. And it becomes detrimental when we indulge in it and ignore its message for us. So when we realize that anxiety itself, for example, has a message for us right now, when whatever is going on is happening, then we also realize that our Rabb, who sends us this messenger, meaning the anxiety, is the one who is taking care of us. He is the Raqib. He is compassionate. He is merciful. And my relationship with anxiety transforms totally. From first identifying with it, I am anxious, I say, and hating it, and maybe hating myself being in that way, yet being addicted to it, and holding tight onto it, and refusing to let it go, because it feels, when we are in that state, it feels if we let go of the anxiety, it means we accept the situation and we're not going to, it's not going to change, we're not going to do anything about it, which is the opposite. When we realize it's an ayah, a messenger from our Rabb, and we listen to the message it has for us, and take appropriate action after we listen, starting with praying to God for help and thanking that God is there for us, and that this thing that I thought was happening haphazardly is happening under the control of our compassionate Rabb, then it's easy to let it go because it has fulfilled its purpose. Now we can be patiently grateful. Even if the hardship is still there, we can be patient because we see the ayat. It's only when we recognize the ayat that we can be patient and patiently grateful even in hardship. Remember in Surah Luqman, in ayah 31, Surah 31, ayah 17, when he said, Ya bunay aqim as-salat wa'mur bil ma'ruf wanha 'anil munkar wasbir 'ala ma asabaka inna dhalika min 'azmi al-umur. O my dear son, be constant in prayer and enjoying the doing of what is good and forbid the doing of what is wrong, and bear in patience whatever befalls you. This, behold, is something to set one's heart upon. It's something worth setting your heart upon it. And so we become patient and grateful. And as we become patient and grateful, we are more likely to recognize the ayat. And it becomes, when we recognize the ayat, it becomes easier to be patient. And this patience is beautiful. And we are told in the Quran, فَاصْبِرْ صَبْرًا جَمِيلًا. In Surah Al-Ma'arij, Surah 70, Ayah 5, we are told, therefore be patient with the patience that is beautiful, with a beautiful patience. Subhanallah. And you remember, this beautiful patience is mentioned, for instance, twice in Surah Yusuf alayhi salam, in relation to Sayyidina Ayyub alayhi salam, Yusuf's father. And so we are patient beautifully, patient gratefully, thankfully. Then the blessings multiply. إن في ذلك لآية لكل صبار شكور. There are ayat for everyone who is wholly patient, fully grateful. And so we can see the divine help within patience, and we can live with ihsan, and we can see, confirm inna ma'al usri yusra fa inna ma'al usri yusra. There is indeed easiness within hardship, and it's repeated twice. Indeed, there is easiness within hardship. Then we can see the easiness. Outwardly is hardship, but within we are given the patience to bear with it. We are even grateful because we feel that bond with our Rabb, that someone is raqib over us, someone is watching over us, someone is taking care of us. We are not orphans, we are not left alone. And in that state is much beautiful than having everything and feeling alone and alienated from everything, even from oneself. And that's why Imam Ghazali rahimahullah, he said, to get what you love, you must first be patient with what you hate. But of course we can only do this when everything is an ayah. And practically the easiest, the fastest way to remain in track and not forget that everything is from God, not forget who we are, what we are here for, and therefore be patient with whatever happens, especially in times of hardship. The only solution is to be grateful and thankful always, here and now. Look around you right now. What can you be grateful for? Make a list if needed. I find making a list in the beginning especially very important, because it helps us focus, because we live in a time that there are so many distractions. So we need to learn to focus on things that we are grateful for in the beginning, and get into that authentic feeling of appreciation, of gratitude. Stay with it, become familiar with it, because we are so in the habit of complaining of that. We need to become familiar again with appreciation and gratitude. Find something, absolutely anything, to be grateful for right now. And when you are grateful, when we are grateful, when we move beyond ego, beyond self-pity, beyond complaining about ourselves and about the world, then gratitude becomes easier, and it becomes a nice cycle. The more grateful, the easier it is to be patient, and it's extremely important, because it's like driving in the fast lane. You get to Ubudiyya much, much faster, or like driving an airplane instead of going by bicycle or walking. And that's why the core of Ubudiyya is appreciation, appreciating the gifts of Rububiyyah. And then patience itself, we start being grateful for patience itself. Patience is a beautiful gift from God. It's beautiful, and we start being grateful for it as well. And this is why kufr in the Quran refers to unbelief, and as well as to ingratitude. So the term kafir denotes the denier and also the ungrateful. So in ayah 7 of this surah, Surah Ibrahim, we will see it says, وَإِذْ تَأَذَّنَ رَبُّكُمْ لَإِنْ شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ وَلَإِنْ كَفَرْتُمْ إِنَّ عَذَابِي لَشَدِيدٌ. So it says, and remember when you sustained, made known, if you are grateful to me, I shall most certainly give you more and more. But if you are ungrateful, and the Arabic is وَلَإِنْ كَفَرْتُمْ, truly my chastisement will be severe indeed. And it's nice to follow in the original because it gives us the words themselves are signs. They help us connect the ayat with each other. So in the first ayah, it was, and in the first ayah, no, not in the first ayah, sorry, in the second ayah, it was وَوَيْلٌ لِلْكَافِرِينَ مِنْ عَذَابٍ شَدِيدٍ. In ayah 7, when it says, if you are grateful, I will give you more. But if you are ungrateful, and ungrateful there is kafara, then my adhab is shadid. The suffering, my chastisement, my punishment, the suffering of my punishment is severe, and the same words are used in ayah 2. When we said, and woe to those who deny the truth from suffering, from severe suffering, that denying the truth also means the ungrateful. So next time, inshallah, we'll try to remap the words, because it's so beautiful how the words are pointing, indicating how the verses, therefore the meanings, are related in the original. And so when you follow with the original, it's easier to make the connections. So the literal Arabic text denoting if you are ungrateful is وَلَئِن كَفَرْتُمْ. And the Quran uses both renderings of the word kufr, denial of the truth, and ingratitude, because deep down kufr is truly ingratitude. Kufr is covering up of the truth. And the truth is the light that makes us realize how everything created is a blessing. So when there is kufr, when we cover the light, cover the truth, cover the light, we are in darkness, and it seems inescapable to be ingrateful. Or we are grateful temporarily, conditionally, only when things go the way I want. Can you see the self-centered attitude? When things don't go the way I want, I don't find something to be grateful for. Astaghfirullah. Like, it's such a self-deluded attitude, because that's not what the reality is. Who am I that I judge or measure everything according to what I know? What do I know? What I know is almost nothing. I don't know what will happen tomorrow. When I was a child, what a child thinks they need is not what they truly need. I always give this example because I remember when my kids were small, very small. When you're traveling, you want to travel a little bit light, and of course you are putting all the stuff they need, for instance, their clothes. But they are not interested in their clothes. They want to take their toys, their books, their things that they will most probably not need, because where they are going, usually we're traveling during a break, and they will be playing with other kids, they will be outside, they won't need those things. But if you tell them you don't need them, they don't believe. I remember like going with a whole bag of all kinds of plastic toys because the kids said this is what they want and they insist. And we are like the kids. We said this is what I need, this is what I want. How do you know what you truly need? We need, for instance, eternal life, we need eternal happiness, but we are stuck in a small event. So this is nice reminders, very, very important and significant. They are so important that we need to spare daily time for this. The Quran is God speaking to me here and now for my benefit, for my happiness here and now and forever. But I said, no, I don't have time. When I have time, I will listen, because I have so many other important things, all important things. Let's stop and think about the past. How important were they? Now they seem to be important. Doesn't mean that we won't do them. Like, you can't find half an hour a day to reflect on all this. And if we have 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes at night reflecting on these truths, all the day will be transformed with that reflection and those intentions, and we intend to live accordingly. The whole day is going to be a practice of that reflection. So the whole day is going to be lived. We will do the same thing, but with a totally different attitude, and our choices will be totally different, and our perspective and perception will be totally transformed, inshallah. And things that we may be doing right now, we may not change them, but they will be now done with the awareness of ibadah and ubudiyah, instead of doing them unconsciously, unintentionally, let's say. So it's not difficult to live intentionally, inshallah. And we can start with few minutes in the morning and in few minutes in the evening. And we'll start increasing it, because if we're truly doing it right, we start really enjoying it. It will be our best part of the day when we connect with our purpose in life, and each day we readjust our istiqamah, inshallah. So inshallah, next week we'll start from ayah 6 of this of Surah Ibrahim. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين آمين والحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وارنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. I'll stop here, and if you have questions or comment, you're welcome to ask or comment right now, inshallah.
Thank you, Sister Yamina. It was a beautiful session, mashallah. And I especially like the phrase, patiently grateful. Because I used to think that if I am in a state of gratitude, then I will need patience. If I need patience, then it means I lost gratitude. So I was kind of panicking every time I need patience, because I thought that my gratitude is broken again.
Because usually we understand patience as tolerating what's going on.
Yes.
But
yes.
The sabr, as it is, it's not tolerating. When I know that I trust that there is a purpose, even when I don't exactly see it right now, then it's easy to be patient. It's like seeing the sign. It's like, I am hungry. I've been, like in Ramadan, we're hungry, but seeing the sign, being aware of the sign, is like smelling the food. There is no food around, but I know that there is food, and that eventually I'm going to eat. And compare it with the alternative is, I am hungry, there is no smell of food, and I don't even know that there is food, and I'm panicking. If someone tells me be patient, then I'm just tolerating the situation, because there is that anxiety and panic and fear, what will happen. But patience, when we are aware that we are abd, that our Rabb is taking care of everything, that everything is under his control, that he is Al-Aziz Al-Hamid, and that everything in the heavens and everything on earth belongs to him alone, then it's like being hungry, but knowing that there is food, even when we have more certainty, it's like smelling the food. The food is not here, but I smell it. That's being aware of the signs, being aware of the rububiyyah. Inshallah.
Yes. So it means we need to focus on the ayah, the signs, and this sabr is needed because for this focus. And we need sabr to stay away from the illusionary side of worldly life. And this makes perfect sense because many times when Quran refers to mu'min or muhsin, same verses also refers to sabirun. So it's kind of sabr is also a quality mu'min or muhsin needs to have. So this phrase, patiently grateful, nailed the point for me. Thank you very much.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, that's true. Patience is a quality of the muhsin. And that's why here it says, إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِكُلِّ صَبَّارٍ شَكُورٍ. These are ayat for the holy patient, deeply grateful. Because the others, that's why they are not deeply patient. We are not holy patients because they are not ayat for us. Thank you. Thank you, Hasna.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
When you were talking and you said at the second, this is at the beginning, when you were going over the part 2, the ayat in part 2, and you were saying there's 2 ayats which are introduced. It's the book and the prophethood. And then you broke it down into 3 and you said Tawheed, prophethood, and what was the third one?
Tawheed, gratitude, and resurrection of the dead, or akhirah, belief in resurrection.
Okay, because you said 2, I think you said Nubuwa, which is prophethood.
No, Nubuwa. Nabi is the prophet, Nubuwa is prophethood.
Okay, so that's 2. Now, what's the third one? You said Akhirah?
Akhirah. Actually, I had said Hashr, meaning resurrection.
Oh, okay, so...
But Hashr, of course, is an indication of Akhirah. Hashr means we will be resurrected after, there is life after death.
Okay.
Those are the main aims of the Quran. It's very important. If we want to study the Quran, we need to first, when we learn the usul tafsir, how to make tafsir, we need to keep in mind always the main aim of the Quran. For instance, if I am given a book of geography, but I look at it as a book of history, I will be misled. I'm not reading it for what it is. So when I'm reading the Quran for what it is, first is to know God. It's Tawheed. And secondarily, in order to know God, there needs to be, it focuses on Nubuwa, prophethood, messengership, which means not on a particular messenger, but the mission of the messengers. And then third, life after death. So when we say akhirah, it's not only a realm, a world out there, but no, it's us being resurrected, going and living there. So there is more. When we say life after death, it's much more makes it more relevant as far as emotions are concerned. It's me living forever.
Okay, shukran.
You're welcome.
Does anyone have any question or comments? If not, I think we will end here. And I'm sorry about the technical problems we had at the beginning. Next week, inshallah, we will have our usual host, Sister Isra, so we won't have these technical problems anymore, inshallah. If there is no any question or comment, I think we will end here today. Thank you for joining us. And we will continue to Surah Ibrahim next week, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Jazakumullah khair. Thank you everyone. Inshallah. Let's keep each other in each other's prayer, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.